The obsidian dais vibrated beneath the Grand Exarch's clawed feet, a subtle tremor that resonated through the assembly chamber. 1,000 Xylar dignitaries, their chitinous carapaces gleaming under the violet luminescence of the artificial sun, waited in unnerved silence. Before them, projected upon an immense shimmering field, drifted the wreckage. Twisted girders, fractured plating, and the ethereal glow of leaking plasma painted a morbid tableau against the velvet void. This was all that remained of the Seventh Armada, the pride of the Xylar hegemony, annihilated in a single, brutal engagement. The Exarch, his multifaceted eyes burning with a cold fire, addressed the hushed throng. "Explain," he rasped, the word echoing through the vast hall, "how a single vessel, classified as a mere scouting frigate by our analysts, could accomplish this devastation." A high-ranking strategos, his carapace dulled with fear, stepped forward. "Grand Exarch, our initial assessments of the human vessel, designated Dauntless, proved catastrophically inaccurate. Its energy signatures were dismissed as primitive, its offensive capabilities deemed negligible. We believed it posed no credible threat." A wave of murmurs rippled through the assembly. Such a monumental miscalculation was almost unthinkable. The Xylar hegemony had crushed empires with fleets 100 times smaller than the Seventh Armada. The idea that a single human ship could inflict such losses defied all logic, all strategic models. "Negligible?" The Exarch's voice dripped with scorn. 700 capital ships vaporized, escort cruisers reduced to drifting slag. Tell me, strategos, what exactly constituted a credible threat in your estimation? The strategos stammered, his mandibles clicking nervously. "The Dauntless, it employed unconventional tactics, energy weapons far exceeding anticipated yields, and its defenses they adapted. Our disruptor beams, designed to cripple shields, were somehow neutralized. It was as if the vessel anticipated our every move." Another voice, sharper and laced with barely suppressed panic, cut through the chamber. It was the High Inquisitor, his form cloaked in shadow. "There is more at play here than mere technological superiority. The humans, they possess a level of tactical foresight, a capacity for adaptation that borders on precognition. We have interrogated survivors of previous engagements. Their accounts are disturbing." "Disturbing how?" the Exarch demanded, his gaze piercing the Inquisitor. "They speak of calm, an almost unsettling lack of fear even in the face of overwhelming odds. They describe a strategic patience that is unnerving. They do not react as we predict. They do not value what we value. Their motivations are opaque." The Exarch turned back to the holographic display of the ruined fleet. He saw not just wreckage, but a profound and terrifying enigma. Humanity. A species they had dismissed as a minor, technologically inferior race on the periphery of the galaxy had suddenly revealed a capacity for destruction that dwarfed their worst nightmares. "Their homeworld," the Exarch said, his voice low, "is it fortified?" "Reasonably," the strategos replied. "Planetary shields, orbital defense platforms, but nothing that would withstand a concentrated assault by a force of our size." "And yet," the Exarch countered, "they sent a single ship, a scouting frigate. Why?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. "What are they trying to achieve? What is their objective?" The High Inquisitor spoke again, his voice a chilling whisper. Perhaps their objective is not conquest. Perhaps it is something far more subtle, far more dangerous." The chamber fell silent once more, the weight of the unknown pressing down on every Xylar in attendance. The annihilation of the Seventh Armada was not just a military defeat. It was a philosophical wound, a gaping hole in their understanding of the universe. They had encountered an enemy they could not comprehend, an enemy that seemed to defy all the rules of engagement, an enemy that had been underestimated to catastrophic effect. Far beyond the borders of the Xylar hegemony, the human vessel Dauntless continued its lonely patrol. Captain Eva Rostova stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula ahead. The destruction of the Seventh Armada weighed heavily on her. It was a necessary act, a demonstration of force designed to deter further aggression, but it was still a tragedy. "Report," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Long-range sensors are detecting a surge in Xylar fleet activity along the border," the sensor officer replied. "They are mobilizing their forces." "As expected," Rostova said. "They will seek retribution. They will try to understand us." She turned to her first officer, Commander Jayan. "Prepare a message for the Xylar High Command. Acknowledge their losses, express our regret, and reiterate our offer of peaceful negotiation." Giant hesitated. Captain, after what we've done, do you really believe they will listen? Rostova nodded. They will listen. They may not like what we have to say, but they will listen. They are a logical species, ultimately. They will recognize that a war with humanity would be mutually destructive, and they will realize that we have something to offer them that they cannot obtain through conquest. And what is that, Captain? Giant asked. Rostova smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. Hope, Commander, the hope of a future where different species can coexist in peace, where knowledge is shared, and where the universe is explored together, not conquered. The Dauntless continued its course, a solitary beacon of hope in the vast darkness. It was a warship, yes, capable of immense destruction. But it was also an emissary, a symbol of humanity's commitment to peace, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Xylar might see only the weapon, but Rostova knew that the true power of humanity lay not in its technology, but in its unwavering belief in a better future. Across the Gulf of Space, on the bridge of the Xylar Command Ship Dominion, Fleet Admiral Thrax studied the incoming message from the human vessel. He felt a surge of rage, a primal urge to obliterate the Dauntless and all its kind. But he also felt a chilling curiosity. He had reviewed the combat logs, the sensor data, the after-action reports. He had tried to understand the human tactics, their strategies, their motivations, and he had failed. "Play the message," he ordered, his voice strained. The words of the human captain filled the bridge, calm, measured, and utterly devoid of arrogance. Rostova acknowledged the Xylar losses, expressed regret, and offered peaceful negotiation. Thrax listened in stunned silence. "Negotiation," he scoffed, "after what they have done." His second-in-command, a veteran strategos named Vorlag, stepped forward. "Admiral, with all due respect, perhaps we should consider their offer. The annihilation of the 7th Armada was unprecedented. Our simulations suggest that a full-scale war with humanity would be disastrous. Their technology, it is unlike anything we have ever encountered, and their tactics, they are unpredictable." Thrax glared at Vorlag. "Are you suggesting we sue for peace, that we cower before a species we once considered insignificant?" "I am suggesting we exercise caution, Admiral," Vorlag replied. "We cannot afford to underestimate the humans again. Their offer of negotiation may be a ruse, but it may also be an opportunity to learn about them, to understand them, and to determine their true intentions." Thrax remained silent, his mind racing. He hated the idea of negotiating with the humans, of admitting that they posed a threat to the hegemony. But he also knew that Vorlag was right. They could not afford to act rashly. They needed to gather intelligence, to analyze the situation, to make a calculated decision. "Very well," he said finally. "We will respond to their message. We will agree to a meeting. But I want a full analysis of the Dauntless. Every sensor reading, every combat log, every piece of information we can gather. I want to know everything about this vessel, about its crew, about the humans who dare to challenge the Xylar hegemony." The stage was set for a meeting between two vastly different civilizations, a meeting fraught with tension, suspicion, and the potential for either peace or annihilation. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, dependent on the choices made by a human captain and a Xylar admiral. The meeting took place on a neutral space station, a gleaming orbital habitat orbiting a desolate moon. Rostova, accompanied by a small team of diplomats and security personnel, arrived aboard a shuttle, its sleek lines a stark contrast to the heavily armored Xylar warships that surrounded the station. Thrax, his face grim, waited for them in the station's central conference room. The room was sterile and utilitarian, designed for diplomatic neutrality. A large holographic table dominated the center of the room, displaying a map of the disputed territories. Rostova and Thrax took their seats on opposite sides of the table, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. "Admiral Thrax," Rostova said, her voice calm and respectful, "thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Captain Rostova," Thrax replied, his voice cold and formal. "Do not mistake this meeting for a sign of weakness. I am here to ascertain your intentions and to determine whether a peaceful resolution to this conflict is possible." "That is also our hope, Admiral," Rostova said. "We have no desire for war with the Xylar hegemony. Our goal is simply to protect our own interests and to ensure the safety of our citizens." "Your methods of protecting your interests are extreme," Thrax countered. "The annihilation of the 7th Armada was an act of unprovoked aggression." "We acted in self-defense, Admiral," Rostova said. Your fleet was encroaching on our territory and displaying hostile intentions. We had no choice but to defend ourselves. You could have issued a warning, Thrax said. You could have attempted to communicate with us. We did attempt to communicate, Admiral, Rostova replied. Our signals were ignored. Our diplomatic overtures were rejected. You left us no choice. Thrax remained silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on Rostova. He saw no fear in her eyes, no remorse, only a calm determination. He began to understand that the humans were not simply a technologically advanced species. They were a species with a profound sense of justice, a species willing to fight for what they believed in. Very well, Captain, he said finally. Let us put aside the past and focus on the future. What are your terms for a peaceful resolution to this conflict? Rostova smiled. Our terms are simple, Admiral. We ask only that the Xylar hegemony respect our sovereignty and refrain from further acts of aggression. We are willing to negotiate a treaty that will establish clear borders and ensure the security of both our species. Thrax considered her words. They were reasonable, perhaps even generous, considering the circumstances. But he still harbored doubts. He did not trust the humans. He did not understand them. And what guarantee do we have that you will abide by this treaty? He asked. What prevents you from attacking us again in the future? You have our word, Admiral, Rostova said, and our commitment to peace. We believe that a future of cooperation and understanding is possible, but only if both our species are willing to work towards it. The negotiations continued for several days, fraught with tension and suspicion. But slowly, gradually, a framework for a peace treaty began to emerge. Rostova and Thrax, despite their differences, found common ground in their shared desire to avoid a full-scale war. They agreed on a set of principles that would govern the relationship between their species, including respect for sovereignty, non-aggression, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. As the final details of the treaty were being finalized, a new crisis emerged. A long-range sensor station detected an anomaly in deep space, far beyond the borders of both the Xylar hegemony and human space. The anomaly was emitting a powerful energy signature, unlike anything ever recorded. Report, Rostova said, her voice sharp. Captain, the anomaly is growing rapidly, the sensor officer replied. It appears to be some kind of artificial structure, and it's heading directly towards our territory. Thrax, who had been monitoring the situation from his flagship, contacted Rostova. Captain, we are receiving the same readings. This is not a natural phenomenon. It is a threat to both our species. Rostova nodded. I agree, Admiral. We need to investigate, but we cannot do it alone. We need to work together. Thrax hesitated. The idea of cooperating with the humans, of trusting them with the fate of his species, was almost unbearable. But he knew that Rostova was right. This was a threat that transcended their differences, a threat that could only be overcome through unity. Very well, Captain, he said finally. We will join forces. We will send a joint expedition to investigate this anomaly, but I want to be clear. This is a temporary alliance born out of necessity. Once the threat is neutralized, we will return to our respective territories. Understood, Admiral, Rostova said. But perhaps after this is over, we will find that we have more in common than we thought. The Dauntless, accompanied by a Xylar warship, embarked on a perilous journey into the unknown. They traveled for weeks, venturing deeper and deeper into uncharted space. Finally, they reached the source of the anomaly. It was a colossal structure, dwarfing even the largest space stations. It was composed of an unknown metal, shimmering with an ethereal glow. Its shape was bizarre and incomprehensible, a chaotic jumble of angles and curves. It seemed to defy the laws of physics, as if it belonged to another dimension. What is it? Thrax asked, his voice filled with awe and trepidation. I don't know, Admiral, Rostova replied, but I have a feeling we're about to find out. As they approached the structure, their sensors went haywire. Energy readings spiked, communication systems failed, and the very fabric of space seemed to warp around them. Suddenly, a beam of light erupted from the structure, engulfing both the Dauntless and the Xylar warship. When the light faded, they found themselves in a different place. They were no longer in space. They were inside the structure, surrounded by towering walls of metal and pulsating energy fields. Before them stood a figure, tall and slender, its form shimmering and indistinct. Greetings, the figure said, its voice echoing through the vast chamber. I am an emissary of the architects. We have been waiting for you. The architects, Rostova asked, her voice trembling. Who are you? What is this place? We are the creators of this universe, the emissary replied. And this is the Nexus, a gateway to other realities. We have brought you here to deliver a message, a warning. A warning, Thrax said. About what? About the Great Filter, the emissary replied. A cosmic event that wipes out all intelligent life in the universe. It is coming, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Rostova and Thrax stared at the emissary in stunned silence. The Great Filter. A hypothetical event that scientists had speculated about for centuries, the reason why the universe seemed so empty despite the vast number of stars and planets. It was real, and it was coming. But why are you telling us this? Rostova asked. Why not warn others? We have warned others, the emissary replied. But none have listened. They were too caught up in their own petty squabbles, their own selfish ambitions. You are different. You have shown a capacity for cooperation, for understanding. You are the only hope for survival. What can we do? Thrax asked. How can we stop the Great Filter? You cannot stop it, the emissary replied. But you can prepare, you can build shelters, you can preserve knowledge, you can ensure that life continues even after the devastation. Where, Rostova questioned, where can we find shelter? The emissary gestured to a distant point in the Nexus. Beyond. Beyond lies the answer. Beyond is the hope that even we thought was lost to this universe. The emissary then vanished, leaving Rostova and Thrax alone in the vast chamber. They looked at each other, their faces pale with fear and uncertainty. The fate of their species, the fate of the galaxy, rested on their shoulders. We have a choice to make, Admiral, Rostova said. We can give up, we can accept our fate, or we can fight, we can prepare, we can try to survive. Thrax nodded. We will fight, Captain. We will not surrender. We will do everything in our power to ensure the survival of our species. They returned to their respective ships, their hearts filled with a newfound sense of purpose. The peace treaty was forgotten. The old rivalries were put aside. The Xylar hegemony and humanity were united in a common cause, the fight for survival. They began to mobilize their resources, to build shelters, to preserve knowledge. They shared their technology, their expertise, their wisdom. They worked together, side by side, driven by the hope that they could somehow cheat fate. Years passed, the Great Filter drew closer. The skies grew dark, the stars began to fade, and the very fabric of reality seemed to unravel. But the Xylar and the humans did not give up. They continued to prepare, to build, to hope. Finally, the day arrived. The Great Filter descended upon the galaxy, a wave of annihilation that swept through the stars, extinguishing all life in its path. The Xylar and the humans huddled in their shelters, waiting for the end. But the end never came. The shelters held. The knowledge was preserved. And when the wave of annihilation had passed, the Xylar and the humans emerged from their shelters, blinking in the dim light. They had survived. They had cheated fate. They had proven that even in the face of cosmic annihilation, the spirit of cooperation, the power of understanding, and the unwavering belief in a better future could prevail. They stood together on the ruins of their old world and looked out at the vast, empty galaxy. They knew that their journey was far from over. They knew that they had a long and difficult road ahead. But they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the hope that one day they would rebuild, they would thrive, and they would once again fill the galaxy with life. They had learned a valuable lesson, a lesson that would stay with them for eternity. Humanity was underestimated, yes. But humanity, united with others, was capable of anything. The warship no one took seriously had not just decimated a fleet, it had forged an alliance, a future, a hope that defied the very laws of the universe. The final twist wasn't just survival. It was the realization that the greatest strength lies not in weapons or technology, but in the bonds of unity and the unwavering pursuit of a shared destiny among the stars. And as the survivors began their work, a signal echoed from the dark void, not from the architects, but from a place even more distant. A place where it seemed the Great Filter had been faced before. The signal was faint, almost imperceptible, but it carried a message. You are not the first, you will not be the last. Learn from our mistakes, and never give up hope. A new chapter had begun, one with both familiar challenges and possibilities beyond imagining. The true test of this new unity, the ultimate HFY story, was only just beginning.